Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show.
Hello.
You're like dressed up. You're fancy today.
Oh my God, no, I'm not. This is what I wear to go to bed.
You're not wearing an I hate people and you guys suck shirt.
No, I'm in my pajamas. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another 5x3 Radio podcast. We are here this afternoon. What day
This day.
We are here today, and I think the last I couldn't remember. I was talking to somebody recently, and I was like, "Yeah, our last podcast was on crap. What was it on?" But it was on
sometime in 2022.
It was on time constraint. It was on training and time constraints, and it was a really nice, quick podcast too. I didn't realize how quick it was, but and we were talking about that just at our camp this past weekend about training and sometimes how a program, don't try to shove a program into like your life if your life doesn't really allow for that program to be part of your life, right? So I hope those of you who got a chance to listen to that recently enjoyed it and maybe have some thoughts about it. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. So definitely always feel free to contact us. Today, we thought we'd talk about a subject, briefly, but one that Rebecca and I get asked all the time. And that is, when do I wear X? Or when should I put on X? Or why should I wear and fill in the blank? And what we're talking about are equipment, exactly. Shoes, belts, wrist wraps, knee sleeves, knee wraps. We're not talking about squat suits. We're not talking about deadlift suits. We're not talking about, slingshots. We're not Westside Barbell, equipped lifters. We're talking about just very general equipment that most people, once they get involved in strength training, once they're doing a lot of barbell training, might need. And it's not for everybody. I mean, not everybody's going to need this equipment, but there's certain pieces that definitely we want to have early on and then maybe acquire later. So what do you think, Rebecca? What do you think is the number one piece of equipment somebody should have when they begin their barbell training, their strength training?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of plain shoes, right?
Shoes, right?
Your lifters.
Exactly. Your lifters.
Right? And I was thinking about this when you were talking about it, because I think it's almost, at 5x3, it's almost not even a question of whether you're going to have lifting shoes or not, because you've got sort of a library of lifting shoes.
We're like a bowling alley.
Yeah, it's like a bowling alley, exactly. We did just go bowling. It's exactly like
they're
that.
They're rentals, except you don't have to pay for the rentals. We just give them to you.
And that's just sort of standard at 5x3. So the idea of when do I buy lifters really at 5x3, I think a lot of times comes down to, when do I think I'm going to get into a situation where I want to lift at the same time that somebody else who borrows the same shoes wants to lift?
Exactly.
Right. So it kind of comes down to a practical, decision about just accessibility of equipment that you take for granted.
Yes.
And at the gym where I work, it's not the same, lifting environment. It's sort of, it's a racquetball club. There's group fitness classes. There's lots of people coming in what I grew up calling sneakers, but what everybody down here below the Mason-Dixon line calls tennis shoes, or whatever you call them down here in Maryland. So I get a lot of people who start out in sneakers, and running shoes in particular are going to have a lot of cushioning, a lot of squish. They're going to not really be ideal for a heavy squat. For people who are just getting started, or even almost even I'd say like flirting with the idea of barbell training, they make do with those sorts of shoes for a period of time. And, usually a couple of weeks in, they'll get to a point where the bar weight is heavy enough. They've invested enough into the process. They've maybe envisioned themselves as a barbell lifter a little bit more, and they'll start to ask about that. How come I'm not able to stay solid in my foot? Why do I keep getting tipped forward in my toes? Well, let's talk about your shoes. And so that I think would be the first thing. And I can't even believe I'm saying this, but like I have actually had 2 people that I've had to talk to where even having sneakers or tennis shoes is an upgrade from what they showed up in.
Gotcha.
Like I have a person who showed up one time in sort of like, I guess they're semi-athletic shoes, but there's no back to them. And someone else that often trains in Crocs without the backs pulled up. And so, I mean, if you're talking about a certain kind of exercise, that's probably okay. But when you're trying to do a barbell squat and you unrack the bar and you try and step backwards with a heavy weight on your back and you have a shoe on that doesn't have a back to it, that's a safety hazard.
Yeah.
So you would think that lifters would be the first recommendation, but there are actually even situations where, shoes with backs are the first recommendation.
You can squat in a pair of flip-flops. We just don't recommend it. I did when I hurt my foot. I dropped a glass on my foot.
Because you were wearing flip-flops when you were squatting?
Because I was at home and I knocked the glass off the table and it broke and cut my foot. So I couldn't wear my shoes because I was trying to heal this wound, but I needed to squat.
So you were like intentionally wearing them because you couldn't put pressure on a wound or something.
I was intentionally wearing flip-flops because what are you going to do? Not train?
Well, I mean, at that point, would you not just like squat barefoot? Like,
No. Actually having that shoe, I had a little bit of a lift then, right? But I would rather be in a flip-flop than be barefoot on the floor. Because God knows what I'm going to step on when I'm there, right? So I need to have my foot protected.
Yeah, I just I'm watching feet like come just right straight out of the shoe.
I think, squatting with flip-flops, not ideal. I wouldn't do it all the time, but I did it because it could.
Not recommended.
Not recommended, but what are you going to do? Not train. But deadlifting in a pair of flip-flops because oftentimes we'll take maybe people out of their shoes, out of their lifters for the deadlift to get them into a better pulling position. But yeah, we always put people in a pair of shoes right away. And we do have a wonderful shoe collection that we utilize because I can fix a lot of problems with just putting a pair of shoes on somebody than trying to spend some time with them in a pair of sneakers or any other kind of shoe. And then the minute we put a pair of lifters on, that ankle mobility is fixed. This is fixed. They're not pronating anymore. Whatever it is, they can be fixed immediately with a shoe. And I remember Matt Gary saying that Susie Hartwig Gary's husband, Matt, who's a famous powerlifter and coach, and him saying we can fix a lot of people in a pair of shoes right away. So put a pair of shoes on if you can. You have either a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 of an inch heel, depending on what you need. Most people don't need a 3/4 inch. All they need is a 1/2 inch, a little bit of a heel, right? Some people, they'll buy shoes that have a 3/4 inch. They're great looking shoes, but they might put you too far forward in your toes. So you have to be very mindful of that if you do end up buying a pair of shoes like that. So a 1/2 inch heel probably is ideal for most people. Yeah, as Rebecca said, you've got a nice flat surface. You're never going to wear these shoes outside of the gym. They're never going to wear out. So you never have to worry about your own personal gait, how you walk, and you wear out the outside of your shoe, or you wear out the inside of your shoe, or you walk on your toes, or you walk on your heels. It's a flat surface the entire time. And you got a supported heel as well. So it's just in general a good shoe to wear. You would not go to a ballet class without your ballet slippers. You would not go to a soccer game without your cleats. You would not, right? You wouldn't go to a basketball game without your
kit.
Same thing, right? If you're going to lift, if you're going to strength train and you're going to get serious about it and you're going to go into a gym and you're going to put on, a bar on your back and you're legitimately wanting to get stronger, you need to have a good shoe that's going to provide you with a good amount of support. Yeah. Sure, plenty of people can wear Vans or Chucks. I'll try to tell people buy a pair of Vans, buy a pair of Chucks. They're a little cheaper. Don't wear them anywhere else. Like, just use them for your lifting again, because if you wear them around, you're going to wear them out. And then, it's like squatting in a pair of sneakers. It's, you're rocking on the bed. But I do have a young woman who prefers to wear her no bull shoes that are a little flatter. Just causes she's got a little bit of she's got a back issue. So wearing a heeled shoe just puts her in a little weird, stranger position, a different position. That's fine. She squats beautifully. It doesn't matter. It's a flat shoe. It's a good shoe. And it gives her enough support, and she's not really training with that much weight just yet. So maybe, as it gets, she gets stronger as the weight goes on, we might want to change the shoes, or as her back gets better. But for right now, she's fine where it is. I found out just the other day, as I decided to keep my CrossFit shoes on that I wear for deadlifting to wear while I was doing the safety bar squat. Felt a hell of a lot better in those shoes than in my lifters. But the CrossFit shoes I'm wearing still have a supported heel. It's a really nice heel. It's flat, but it's not like super, super flat. Better for me for deadlifts than my lifters. Great for the safety bar squat. Wouldn't wear when I barbell squat though, with the doing my low bar squat. I would wear my lifters. But sometimes trying to figure out like a good shoe, just never a tennis shoe. I think a sneaker, something squishy like that would definitely be kind of not optimal. But there are plenty of other flat shoes that are not lifters that you could certainly, try to wear. But in general, as you were saying, a good lifting shoe is really bare bones.
Something that doesn't have a lot of cushioning, that's going to allow force transfer without a lot of wiggle side to side.
Yeah, your whole point is you're trying to get stronger. And this is a sport. It is a sport, right? We're even though they're the power lifts, so we're not necessarily training power lifters. There are people who power lift, and that is a sport. And in that sport, they have shoes that they wear. It's
interesting when you talk about like you wouldn't show up to your ballet class without your ballet slippers, right? Like I think at least for a lot of the people that I'm working with, like I give them a little time at in a non-lifting gym setting to kind of wrap their mind around, am I going to make this investment? But I mean, it's making me wonder, like, why do people even need that time? Because if they were going to get started with a running program, I don't think people would have the same, I don't want to spend a lot of money on it kind of attitude that I encounter with lifting. Like, I've got these sneakers. Why can't I just wear them for the work of the barbell?
And I like that. I have a young man who just started with us yesterday, and he came in and I said, okay, remind me, what size are you? He gave me a size. He says, I ordered my shoes already.
Nice.
He came in on Friday, met with me. We scheduled him with Craig. He came in yesterday. He's already ordered his shoes. He's making a commitment. Yeah. He signed up for a year-long membership. This is something he's never done before, but it's like, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to do it right.
Yeah.
And
I think that kind of comes down to whatever, I said this already, but the difference between the two gyms, where yours is specifically a strength gym.
Right.
Whereas if you're working sometimes in an environment that's more ambiguous, like it could be a swim club, it could be a racquetball club, it could be, like what kind of shoes do I need isn't necessarily clear. And whatever. Yeah.
We had
it's a different population.
I definitely want to move on from the shoes, but one last story. So we had our camp this past weekend, and there's a couple that came, and when they came in, they walked in, they were wearing pants and comfortable shoes, and they both had sneakers on. So I said to them, "You guys have lifters?" Because they didn't bring any gym bags. No, we train in our sneakers. I said, "Okay, I'm going to get you a pair of shoes. What size are you?" And they're kind of looking at me like, "Okay, what's happening here?" Not quite sure why I'm asking for that. So I give them a pair of shoes, and the wife is you can see there's a little bit of a hesitancy, like, I don't know what's going on here. And she's very adamant that she's doing this just for health purposes. She's not interested in adding weight to the bar. She just wants to make sure her technique is good. She doesn't want to hurt herself, I was like, absolutely. I'm not trying to push you to add weight. I'm not you're here for technique. That's what the camp is for, right? So she gets her shoes on, and we get her under the bar. She's squatting, and I'm having her tell her to turn her toes out, do this, and she's just like, "This is not what I've been doing," and this and that. But she's embracing all of it. It's not that she's pushing back on me. She's embracing it. And slowly you see her squat transform from what it was to what it is at the end. Was it perfect? No, but was it completely different than what she had started with? Absolutely. Then the bench happens. Then her deadlift happens. She's never deadlifted before because they only have a 45-pound bar at home, and she's got no bumpers.
Right. Uh-huh.
So she's putting little 10-pound plates on the floor, right?
Oh, geez, yeah.
Put the bumpers on. She deadlifts 90 pounds. Never done it before. And that was easy. She's got so much more in her. So her husband emails me today and thanks me for the camp, and then says, I have tried very unsuccessfully to get her to really invest in lifting, and I have not been able to do it. Now she wants bumpers, shoes. She wants.
Well, I mean,
she's like, and she wants to squat, bench, and deadlift. Like she has. Yeah. You could see when she started there, it was like, I'm very like, I just want to have my technique. And all of a sudden she's benching 5 less pounds than what you squatted. And I said to her, I said, now you know you have a lot more in you because you just benched 5 pounds less than what you squatted. And she's like, mm-hmm. And then she deadlifts 90, never deadlift. Now she wants to do it all. And she wants the shoes, and she wants the bumpers, and she wants this. He says, I can't believe what you did. It was like, we allowed her to say, we allowed her to say, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You don't have to, but I'm going to show you this. We're going to show you this, and then you decide what you want. And at the end of the seminar, she was just like, that was it. She was real quiet, so you didn't know, but she was excited.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, also, like, you opened her eyes to a different world. And like, if she's like, I think what you're saying is they're lifting at home, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
If you're lifting even at like a general gym, a lot of times they will have a variety of equipment, and you'll be more aware or attuned to what all is available out there.
Exactly.
As opposed to just, the stuff that somebody buys for their home gym is going to be more limited, and you get that limited equipment coupled with what somebody's misperceptions or stereotypes of what lifting is, right? Like, I don't want to put those shoes on because then I'm going to end up looking like
you're going to make me do a lot more than what I want to do. Yeah, well, you're also going to make me do a lot more than what I want to do, and I don't want to get that serious. And now she's like, I'm serious.
Now she's sort of seen that there is a barbell world out there that she fits right into that she didn't even know was there.
And it was just, I love having emails. I love getting emails like that. I like getting that. Really has, like, I've tried to talk her into doing this. How did you do that? How did you?
Now he's got to go buy all that extra equipment though.
He's
so
like,
maybe he's going to send you another.
But I love having him, like, he came over, he's like watching her deadlift, and you could see him like staring at her like, is this my wife? Is this my wife? So that was, so there's somebody who came in, no shoes, put her in a pair of shoes. Now she wants a pair of shoes because she realizes what she's actually capable of doing.
So shoes
number one
are the piece of gateway equipment
to
the wider world of bars. So what's the second piece?
The belt.
Okay.
I would have to say the belt. The belt's probably the second piece because and people always ask me, early on, when do I put a belt on? When do I need a belt? And we have a number of soft belts, right? We have a number of Velcro belts that you can buy on Amazon, $21.
Yeah, 20, 25.
I love Harbinger, Harbingr. That brand specifically is just a nice, solid quality belt, and you could wear that for a long time. Once, though, you've started to wear the belt, and you have the soft belt, then obviously you want to start looking for a leather belt. But when do you put them on? When do you need the belt first? The two main lifts that I find people need the belt on, maybe a month into their training, maybe a little earlier if they're a little smaller, older, or if they're female, and they're perhaps underweight. And so the lifts are getting a little bit heavier. Squat and press. Squat's probably the first one, and then the press, right? Those are the two lifts. And it's usually my older women, and my younger women who are underweight, who are, smaller, who just need more support because they're strong where they are, but then that press gets heavy and that squat can start to get, fairly heavy too. And they're still learning the movement. So that extra support allows them to then figure out exactly what the tension is. And that's kind of key. Tightness. I think a belt, why I like to put the belt on for people, it's not so much that they're losing, that they're squatting high, because oftentimes I'll tell people, well, it's usually when you start to squat high, usually it's when they're not holding tension at the bottom enough, and you can see it's getting harder for them to come up. And they're holding the breath. They're doing the breathing. They're doing the Valsalva, but it's still that's not enough. That belt, that little extra support, bit of support, all of a sudden is a very nice tactile cue to tell somebody, oh, that's how much tighter I need to be. So when they don't have the belt on, they're trying to replicate what that feels like. Then all of a sudden I see people taking a much bigger breath, learning where to hold it, learning where the breathing really is. And then that allows them, when they put the belt on, they can use that breathing out to help, reinforce that.
So that's interesting, because I guess I would have said the two lifts where I see people needing it most are squat and deadlift.
Never the deadlift.
But as you're talking about you're describing the client as like maybe an underweight female, I could really see where that belt would be helpful on press. And I think in large part because women often tend to have sort of like, especially it seems like especially women who have had children have sort of like an anterior pelvic tilt, right? So like a lot of arc to the low back. And the belt, I think, would help to just kind of, like you're saying, tactile cue, remind them to keep that locked in, keep everything like that solid canister, as opposed to the bar is getting heavy as I'm pressing it overhead. My ribs are going to flare, my pelvis is going to tilt forward, and I'm going to arc back and feel it in the back, right? The belt reminds you not to do that with your spine while you're pushing the weight overhead.
Exactly. Or when you're squatting down, right? Because the tendency is women are very flexible and we can stick our butts out pretty easily. So when we move hips back, sometimes women will arch more. They'll hyperextend. You don't see that with guys. You very rarely see that with guys, and you don't see that with my bigger women, but you definitely see that with my smaller, more flexible women, right? The ribs will flare, which sends the butt back, and that happens typically either when they're going down or when they're coming up. So learning how to brace. Right, we teach the bracing. We do the drill with pushing against the wall or pushing the rack. We do the drill up there at our camp, learning how to what that feeling, that breathing, really feels like. But sometimes that's just not enough. So when you put the belt on, all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, that's how tight I have to be. Yeah, I can't get into your body to tell you how tight you need to be, where the breathing is. I can show you. I can hit my stomach. Make it hollow, make it solid, but I like eventually with the squat and with the press, it does help tremendously for them to all of a sudden feel like there's tension in my body. Now I get it. And later on, even from some of my women who are not underweight, but who are where the press is getting heavy, like it's getting into the 80s. That's a pretty nice high weight for a female. The belt helps tremendously. I put the belt on for one of my women and her press soared. It was so much easier. Squat too. We got to a certain weight for the squat. She refused to squat at this weight, like was doing singles, because she couldn't commit to a triple because she just didn't feel like she had it. It was so nerve wracking. I put a soft belt on her. 1, 2, 3, like 3 beautiful reps. And now she's squatting 10 pounds more than she was before that. It was like, how did I do that? I was like, you already had that in you. It just, that little bit of extra, tension, and you really feeling having something to push against helped your body realize, I am in position. I can stay in position. I'm taking the breath. I'm doing everything right. Now I'm just a little, I have a little bit more tightness. I'm a little firmer. I trust my body a little bit more. So I find definitely the squat and also the press.
Yeah. So like at your gym, you have the soft belts. And what's nice about those is they're Velcro. And so they can be easily adjusted for different people, different sizes.
Yeah, I have small, medium,
As
large.
a gym owner, especially a gym owner who runs a strong woman competition, because the soft belt is nice for a lot of the strong woman events in a way that a hard belt is not.
Sure.
It makes a lot of sense for you to have soft belts. If you're somebody who's lifting at home, you've got a home gym and you're going to buy hopefully one belt. I mean, whatever. It's like the way you're describing the soft belt, use in your gym is almost maybe like training wheels, like it's like a training
Yes.
belt, like try
Absolutely.
it out, see how much this improves
Yep.
your technique, your ability to maintain tension while you're
Yep.
doing this lift. Now think about buying your own hard belt. What hard, and I know you've lent your own belt to a lot of members in the past, if they're, the right size and it fits them, and people are friendly and generous with letting others borrow and try out their belts if they're not currently using them or whatever. So just similar to the shoes, it's like a library of equipment. You can test it out, make a decision about what's going to be right for you. If you don't have that, would you recommend that a person buy a soft belt first, or just go right ahead to a leather belt?
So Diego, that's a good question, because actually I told someone the other day about getting a soft belt. Diego said, no, just go ahead and buy a belt. Go for the leather belt. Just get it now. I personally like having both. I like the soft belt and the leather belt, because sometimes I don't need my leather belt. I don't want to have to worry about putting that thing on. The soft belt gives me enough support, especially if it's a lighter weight, but I want to just do it fast, and maybe my back is feeling kind of funky that day or something. I don't need to wear the leather belt, but I think for someone who needs to get a belt now, getting a leather belt, if you can get the leather belt and it comes in on time, buy that. I don't think you need to, maybe you can buy a soft belt down the road, but I think Diego's right. I think just go ahead and invest in one now.
That's generally the way I've done it too. Like if I get a person, and again, it's a different environment. So if I get a person who's gotten to a point where they're like, I think I need my own belt. And the gym does have some belts that you can borrow, but they're all like those dumb ones that are fat in the back and skinny in the middle.
Exactly.
And they're weird sizes and whatever. So, I mean, that's another thing that kind of, if I get a person who's to the point where they want to buy a belt in that environment, as opposed to one of my online clients generally show up with their shoes, their belt, their whatever other equipment. They've already got that. But somebody who's just starting out, I think all of those individuals just starting out and maybe testing out that idea have gone right to a leather belt. And they always sort of are curious, like, well, should I get a 4-inch? Should I get a 3-inch? Should I get the lever? Should I get the double prong?
Exactly. So let's talk about that.
What do you advise there?
Let's talk about that. Double prong, do not buy. Do not
pain
buy
in the ass.
Do not buy a double prong belt. It's a pain in the ass. It does, I don't even know why it's been made. It's just ridiculous.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Either, right?
It doesn't make sense.
Like, to me, I feel like if the belt is fitting snugly, it's kind of difficult to get the one prong in, and you do that and you're like, oh, thank God I got it in. Oh shit, now I got to do it again, second time with this other one.
Also, you're trying to get the belt off, right? At the end of your set, you're like, I'm going to get this fucking thing off me because it hurts. And now you're trying to, you got to get 2 prongs out. No. Don't do it.
Emily, there was one time where I was like so exhausted at the end of one of my squats or something, and I was trying to get my belt off and I couldn't get it off, and I almost panicked because I couldn't get it off.
I had people who
I just like stand there and be like, okay, calm down.
I have to teach people.
It'll be okay.
It'll come off. I teach people how to put their belt on and how to get it off. And the one thing I say when they're having a hard time getting it off, don't panic. Breathe, because if you panic, you makes it worse. So double prong belt, do not get.
Well, and like even Sadie will sit there. She'll just sit there and like she'll do her first set of squats, sits there with the belt on, and like scrolls through TikTok and stuff. I'm like, why are you just? She's like, I can't even bother with taking it off.
Yeah, well, if your belt is on and you're talking to somebody and walking around the gym and it's still on, it's not tight enough.
Yeah, well, I checked hers though.
It's tight. She's just tiny. She's just tiny.
It's just a pipsqueak, and she's stubborn, and she doesn't want to deal with it.
We put her up to the side. We don't put her to the side. But most of us, if we're walking around having a conversation and laughing it up with people, playing with dogs in the gym, and we still have our belt on, it's not tight enough. And if I can stick my hand through your back and through the belt and drag you around the gym.
Down the back, not through it.
Well, down the back and drag you around. It's not tight enough, and I'm gonna make that thing tighter. So, no to double prongs.
What do you say about a lever belt?
See, lever belts. I have a lever belt. I love my lever belt. It's a 4-inch, and we'll talk about that too. It's a 4-inch. I wear it for squatting. I wear it for pressing. I don't wear it for deadlifts. I have a 3-inch for my deadlift belt. And some people will say they have 2 belts. They have 4-inch belt for, squatting or pressing, and a 3-inch belt for deadlifting, because unless you're Kelly with a nice long torso, the 4-inch belt doesn't feel very good when you bend over to deadlift. She wears a 4-inch belt, and she has a lever belt. Lever belts, I don't want to say are fine. They're a pain in the butt too. We try to avoid getting people to buy lever belts because they just are kind of an annoyance, because you gain weight, you lose weight, you got to unscrew it with a screwdriver, and you're messing with it for like 20 minutes trying to figure out where the hole is. It's a pain. Whereas a nice one prong
single prong belt, all you have to do is just buckle it differently.
Easy. So Diego says, and then I have Charlie, one of my members, going, "What's wrong with you?" Because he's got a lever belt. He goes, "You're always in the no lever belt, camp." And I said, "Because Charlie, it sucks. I love my belt. I'm never going to give my belt up, but it's still a pain in the ass. I've clipped myself. I've pinched myself before, my skin, trying to screw that thing. It's a pain in the ass, but I do love it. It's a 4-inch. I kind of am attached to it. So it's mine, but I do not recommend people buy it.
Yeah, it's sort of like the way I'm sort of thinking of it as you're talking about it. It's like the soft belt is like the training belt.
Yes.
And then your first belt, right? My first belt, right? Mm-hmm. Probably a 3-inch, mm-hmm. and like in an ideal scenario, 3-inch belt and single prong, right. 3-inch belt, just because that's going to be the most versatile. Like if you're just getting started and you want to spend your money wisely, and you may not want to get into lifting to the point where you've got equipment specialized for each lift, right? The 3-inch belt is going to be, for most people, the most versatile, unless you're extremely short torsoed, and then that might be a little wide.
So, and that's the thing. It's like I have a 3-inch and I have no torso, and I wear my 4-inch for pressing and squatting, and it's uncomfortable. I mean, it keeps me tight. It doesn't bother me when I'm lifting, as long as it's, sized correctly, and I'm not being stubborn and refuse to take it out when I need to. It does go over my ribs, right? It's a 4-inch and I have no torso. So I should be wearing a 3-inch when I'm squatting, but I'm just so used to that 4-inch. I'm hooked to it. I've tried both. I prefer my 4-inch. However, I cannot deadlift in that thing. And I will deadlift in my 3-inch belt, but rarely. Like I'll go back and forth with the belt, without the belt. And that's comes to like when I put people in a belt for deadlift, that's very individual. And that's very individual for the person. Unless they have a back issue, and we're trying to keep that back nice and happy. And even if they do, I have a client who's coming back from having a little bit of a back tweak, and he's not wearing a belt right now. He's doing his deadlifts beltless. He's really locking in on his technique and his position, and it's so much better. He doesn't need the belt. He doesn't wear it. I can deadlift without my belt these days. Back's just locked into place. I don't need it. It's very individual. Some people like having it. It works for them. Other people, it's too uncomfortable. They're constantly thinking about it. They'd rather not wear it until maybe they have to. When they have to, the weight's pretty heavy by that point for them.
Yeah, and I think whatever the lift is, there's like a learning curve with the belt when you first put it on. Like, and it seems to be steeper for a lot of people with deadlift, and I don't know why that is. Like, I find a lot of times people have difficulty doing the exact same movement depending on how they are oriented towards gravity or towards the floor or whatever. And there's something about the deadlift where a lot of times people just have a hard time the first couple times they're doing that with the belt on, figuring out, okay, wait, I used to know how to get my abs tight. I used to know how to get braced and get set up. And like the belt kind of disrupts the communication that happens between those muscles. So there's, I think, a learning curve with all the lifts. It seems to be steeper for a lot of people there with the deadlift,
especially because you're folded over, right? And so
now the sensation is different. The sensation is very different. I'm getting squished. There's my lunch coming back to visit me.
Also, again, smaller people are going to probably have an easier time with the belt and the deadlift than bigger people. Just but even because you put that belt on, it's uncomfortable already to get into that position if you've got a belly, right? If you got a belly, it's going to sit between your legs, so it's already uncomfortable. Then you add a belt on top of that. Now it's really uncomfortable. And again, most people who are bigger are going to be stronger. They've got muscle there, so they don't necessarily need that belt just yet. It's not going to work for them. There will be a time and a place for when that belt needs to go on, and when it goes on, we have to practice with it. And I like the soft belts to start with because they are 4-inch, but they squish, right? So there's give to them. So it's good to get used to that, to have some give. Then the leather belt goes on, and then you have to kind of work around that, figure out, a little bit looser for the deadlift, a little bit tighter for the squat, especially to make sure that you're in a good position.
And right there, I think, is the argument for the single prong belt as opposed to the lever belt,
Always.
right? Because if you're going to buy one belt and it's going to be the belt that you use for all your lifts, you can make that adjustment and make the belt a little bit looser for your deadlift than it is for the squat without having to get out your screwdriver.
So 2 belts that we recommend, 2 companies that we recommend here at 5x3. No, we are not sponsored by them, and we do not have any affiliation with these, these companies. I get no kickbacks, although I wish I did because I sell their products a lot. Best Belts and Pioneer Belt. Now, Diego will say right now, don't buy a Best Belt, only buy a Pioneer Belt, because Pioneer has developed the Pioneer Cut belt. So it's a single prong, 3-inch belt, but it has like 2 rows of holes, which is genius. Because you're like, it's not too tight here, but it's too loose here. I wish I had another damn hole. Well, they solved that problem for you. So Diego's like, that's brilliant. Why didn't everybody else think of that? Except it's kind of hard to get their belts, right? Because it's like the only things available right now are the smalls.
But I would say also the other consideration is if a person has aspirations for competing, you want to make sure that the belt that you buy is approved by whatever.
You need an approved belt. You need an approved belt if you want to powerlift. Yeah. So Inzer makes a good belt. Inzer makes lever belts. That's what I have. I have an Inzer lever belt. But we definitely usually tell people Best Belts or Pioneer belts. I have a Best Belt. Best Belt is a 3-inch single prong leather belt. They have a variety of other belts, but that's the one that we always kind of send people to. Whether it's a 10 millimeter or a 13 millimeter is the thickness. Usually we go with the 10 millimeter. So you want to just get a simple belt that is going to be very useful for you for all of your lifts. And I think you can't go wrong with a 3-inch single prong belt from either
Pioneer or Best. And then if you find you've been lifting for years and you love it and you want to get a belt that's more special, especially designed or accommodated for a particular
Also, I think when we bought the Inzer belts, because Diego has a lever belt too, there weren't too many choices back then. I mean, we were talking about like 2010, 2011. There weren't that many choices. I mean, Rogue was just kind of getting started. So now you have a lot more choices, a lot more availability. There's a lot more out there. But we find those are the 2 belts that we like to recommend to people. And we have quite a few best belts in the gym that are either, people have left or given to us, or they're, and can be loaners for people to try and then eventually get their own belt.
Background. That is the name of the family. Best.
BEST. Best.
The family that makes them is Best.
Right? Bestbelt.net.
As opposed to like you're not necessarily saying this is the best belt.
No, it's bestbelt.net, and then it's Pioneer belt, and they are General Leathercraft. So if you want to check those 2 out. So
I would say belt as number 2, but I would also put next to that, depending on the person, either the same time or even sometimes even a little sooner, might be like knee sleeves.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Like, because I work with a lot of older clients and they've got creaky, achy knees. And so sometimes the knee sleeves are helpful. And might be something that they purchase at about the same time as the belt, or if the knees are creaky and osteoarthritic and whatever else, that might even be something that they purchase at the same time.
So knee sleeves are interesting because it's true. Like there are plenty of people who need them early on. I've got people in my 30s. I've got clients who are 30s and they wear knee sleeves and they've been wearing them for forever. And then I've got older clients. I have a client, Martha, who was on our podcast a while back. She was a runner. Her knees are absolutely great. Fantastic.
Yeah, okay, that surprises me.
Unbelievable.
But I think it's like her bone structure skeletal structure is good for running as opposed to mine.
Her knees are fantastic. My mom's knees are fantastic. My mom's going to be 73 this year. Her knees are fantastic. Deb, I've got quite a few clients who don't wear knee sleeves. And then I have others who wear the knee sleeves because they've had knee problems or they had knee surgeries. And then I have, but I have a number of younger clients who have been wearing them from the beginning. Their knees, are kind of creaky. Knees are just creaky in general. We're made all wrong. We have these heavy, big muscles up here, and then we have these like little muscles right here, the knee joints. So they get pissed off really quickly if we give them, if we give them enough, fire to get irritated. But not all knee sleeves are created equal. So you have to be mindful of that, right? Don't buy the cheapo knee sleeves. Cheapo knee sleeves are just that, cheap. They're not going to give you any protection. So just because they're $20 and you're like, oh, they're $20, they're going to last a week and you're going to realize I need to spend my money. Spend your money. I like to refer people to Reband first, which you have to be mindful of because it comes one sleeve. So you have to make sure you say 2 sleeves or else you're going to get just one sleeve when you order them.
And then you've got to choose which is your favorite knee.
Yes. They're good quality. They're a good quality knee sleeve. And then of course, just like with the belt, right? You can start with the Rebands. You can start with the soft belt. Then you want to upgrade. If you upgrade to the SBDs. And the SBDs knee sleeves, you'll never need another pair of knee sleeves ever, 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 ever again in your life. Those are like the heavy duty knee sleeves, but they're lovely. It's like a little bit of love, both of them, Reband or SBD on your knees. So yes, I would say yes, that might be a second, third kind of.
Yeah, I mean, that's like where that falls, where the knee sleeves fall in terms of purchases, I think is individual. It depends on the person. It depends on what,
Yes, and make sure that you have the correct size. Just like the belt, make sure you size yourself correctly. Don't go buy, well, that belt fit me, so I'll just, buy that belt. Measure yourself properly. Measure yourself, because then you end up with like buying too small of a belt or too big of a belt. Then you got to sell the belt and get another belt. But there's always someone who's, looking for one, so it's easy. But same with the
if you need a smaller belt, you could always punch new holes.
There you can do that too. Yes, you can always go and get holes punched. But measure your knees as well. Just make sure you're always making sure that you read the instructions correctly. Take time. Take time to buy your purchases. That's number 3. So number 4 on your list of what someone might want to utilize in the gym after some time. I know what I was saying.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know what you're gonna say.
I don't wear them.
Are you gonna say wrist wraps? What are you gonna, yeah. I've had one client who had wrist wraps. So I would actually maybe this is anathema, like blasphemy, something, I don't know. But like, I might also, like tied with wrist straps, might also say straps.
Absolutely.
For lifting.
Absolutely.
And that's just based on my own experience, probably mostly, but like you get to a point where your deadlift is sufficiently heavy and your grip strength is built on your heavy lift day, your heavy deadlift day. And then you've got like a volume lift day. And it's just like, it's nice to have a little break.
Yeah. We talked about straps when we talked about grip. Our podcast on grip, but we didn't necessarily, we talked in terms of, that when your grip goes, how to, adjusting your grip for the various lifts, and using straps for that purpose. And then not all straps are created equal, right? Diego's very particular about the kind of straps he likes to use. I have a love-hate relationship with straps. I don't like using them only because I don't know how to use them. I'm being very honest and open up here that I'm a coach and I'm a lifter and I do not like to use straps because I have a hard time with them. I just don't practice enough with them because I don't like to practice with them. So they just bother me, and here's the reason they bother me. They bother me because I have a very specific way of getting set up in the deadlift. I have a very specific way of getting set up in all my lifts. And it takes that out. If I'm fidgeting around there at the bottom with my damn straps, I am not setting myself up properly for the deadlift, and that is a problem for me. And I'm maybe that's as a dancer. I have technique issues here, But
you're not particular at all.
Craig was saying that to me yesterday. He goes, Emily, you got to learn how to use those damn straps. I'm like, I know I do, but I hate them. I don't like the way that makes me sit up for my
I'm
deadlift.
like on the total opposite end of the spectrum from you at this point. Like I'm not competing I don't really envision myself doing that anytime. I've pretty much switched over to straps all the time.
Yeah.
My grip is getting terrible, right? Like, so there's that. But like my right hand grip has always been weaker than my left hand grip anyway. It's just, it's depressing.
I hook grip.
But it does totally mess up. Like it totally changes your setup.
Yes.
And I mean, the first time I used straps, I got so in my head about getting them on and getting set up that I actually didn't even notice that I didn't have my belt on. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
And so I got all set up and it was like a fairly heavy deadlift, and I was fine on the first 2 reps. And then the 3rd rep, I was like, shit, I don't have my belt on.
And your brain goes, yeah.
And then as soon as I had that realization, I was like, oh yeah, and I'm pretty sure my back hurts.
Yeah. I watched, and we'll get back to wrist wraps. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about wrist wraps. But I watched Craig showing Gretchen yesterday how to use figure eights, and she says, "What do I do?" He goes, "What do you mean? What do you do? Put them on like this." She goes, "Like what?" He goes, "Like this." He says, "You have a PhD in math. What do you mean you can't put on or a PhD in economics or something? What do you mean you can't put on straps?" I'm like, I don't know how to use straps. I don't know. She's like, "How do I put them on? I don't know how to use these." But figure eights are like basically, a no-brainer, and you're not even holding on to the bar. I mean, you're still holding on the bar. But Diego likes those specifically. He likes also the straps that have just like the single strap where you just slide your hands through, grab the bar, and then slip the little strap through. Yeah. I actually like the ones that kind of wrap around multiple times. I enjoy, I like those, but again, I'm not a big strap person, so I don't like them. I will hook grip the crap out of that bar before I put straps on my wrists.
I got like the second kind that you were describing with the little loop that goes around your wrist, which, I mean, I know I've seen some Rippito videos disparaging that kind of strap, but like it works for me. Like the Harbinger, it's easy to use. It's easy for me to use. It's easy for me to set up. I've not had any issues with my wrists as a result of that.
You find what works for you, and what we'll do is we'll teach people how to hook grip. We'll teach people how to mix grip, and then we'll say, okay, if straps are easily available or easy to use for somebody, straps. If they're not going to compete anytime soon, you'd rather don't, as Craig said, don't mess your thumbs up. I'm like, my thumbs are fine. I tape them. They're good to go. I'm not
I mean, that's how it was when I was doing when I was competing and not using the straps. I had to tape I had a whole elaborate thing I would do with the tape and the chalk and
so you could add athletic tape to your accessory list. If you're hook gripping, make sure you have some tape. So going back to
maybe some new skin for when your hook grip starts to make the inside of your thumb cry.
My thumbs are fine. My thumbs are absolutely fine. I hook grip my pause deadlifts. I hook grip my stiff legged deadlifts. I hook grip my heavy deadlifts. I hook grip with the Ohio.
Yeah, well, okay, but then at that same time when you get your athletic tape, then you also get your callus shaver.
The callus shaver's for my calluses. That's because I use the power bar. Tom and I both look for that.
Oh, you just like Emily.
What?
You just go up to the power bar and to deal with your
No, I don't do that. I get them from the power bar. I don't do that. No, I either have a shaver.
I thought you were saying you're using the power bar as an Emery board.
No, but that's how I have an even better grip is that power bar. So, but wrist wraps. Why would someone want to use wrist wraps? So, I don't use wrist wraps with my own training, but wrist wraps for individuals who are squatting. Let's say they're squatting with their thumbs around the bar, so their wrist is a little bit more bent back than a thumbs over bar where you have a more neutral wrist. Even if you're holding the bar on your back, even if it's the tightest position and it's not rolling in your wrist, your hand so much. Some people just really appreciate having a firmer, a tighter wrist, and want to protect themselves a little bit more. So there's nothing wrong with wearing wrist wraps if you're squatting with the thumbs around and you want to, you just want to protect that wrist from from any sort of injury, if you've maybe had that in the past. Pressing. Some people will wear them when they're pressing. Again, they're having some problems where the bar kind of rolls around a bit, even though they're trying their darndest not to. One of my guys just tried wrist wraps the other day as the press was getting heavier for him, made a big difference for him. Some of my women will wrap their wrists when they press. I think Kelly uses wrist wraps when she's pressing and benching too. So it's support. It's just like knee sleeves. It's support for your wrist. Yeah. That is a very, very individual, piece of accessory to use. And the person usually has been using them from the beginning and it works for them, or they're having some issues with their wrists. We try the wrist wrap and that seems to kind of take away any issues that they were having. Elbow sleeves, I'm going to throw in elbow sleeves there. Elbow sleeves might be useful for somebody, especially if they're doing strongman. So strongman and strong woman, wrist wraps, elbow sleeves, knee sleeves, those are going to be kind of essential because you're picking up really awkward objects, putting your body into weird positions they're not normally in. So those accessories are definitely going to be needed for that type of training. But an elbow sleeve might be good for somebody who's just having some kind of weird elbow discomfort. And we don't know the reason why. One of my ladies actually she gets a little bit of nerve tingling in just one arm when she's pressing. So she'll wear the elbow sleeve, takes it away immediately. It's just a little bit of compression. It's compression. It's just compression. And it's only pressing. It's only on that one side. So we discover that by trying the elbow sleeve. If someone's if they're having elbow issues, if they have some irritation in the elbow, possibly from the shoulder. One of my older clients likes to wear elbow sleeves when he benches. Again, compression, a little extra compression, just like knee sleeves. You're not going to see that too often in the gym if you're just kind of training regularly, but possibly if the person has had just a slight tweak or slight injury and is able to continue to bench or press, but just needs a little extra support. I tried elbow sleeves once when my elbows were bothering me. And once they stopped, I stopped using the elbow sleeves. I didn't need them anymore. So I might want to I'll throw that in. That is kind of like at the bottom end of your accessory. That is definitely not one that is needed by most people.
Right.
Unless they're doing any kind of competition or else they're moving a lot of heavy weight on a lot of times. And eventually there will be some stress on the joints and then a little bit of compression helps to relieve that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like in life in general, people are probably using their knees more than their elbows.
Absolutely.
So you encounter people earlier on who might have an issue that sort of calls for a knee sleeve.
Right.
Whereas the elbow sleeve is just because of general usage patterns in the world today, not something that is as frequently needed.
No, I bought mine when I was training last summer for the Strong Woman competition, and unfortunately they came later, so I couldn't use them for my meet. But they came in handy afterwards when there were some things that were kind of annoying me, and then also I had them for my client who needed them, and she only wears it when she presses. But it took away that little irritation immediately. And her press is doing great. So I'm thinking that really kind of covers it. I mean, really, because most people don't need too much equipment, but in general, shoes, a belt, possibly straps and wrist wraps might be really, and of course knee sleeves might be really it for most individuals who are looking to get the most out of their training. And feel good, and knowing that you have the accessory, you have the equipment you need to go and do your training, just like you would do with any type of sport that you were serious about. Yeah. And when to use them, and then of course the how to use them. Plenty of videos that you can watch of how to put your knee sleeves on or how to put your belt on, because knee sleeves can be tough. I mean, it took me about 10 minutes to put my SBD knee sleeves on once. When I first got them, and I remember Pavi when she got hers, I think it was like a half an hour of trying to teach her how to put her knee sleeves on. They're quite tough, and you learn the little tricks of the trade of how to put things on, easily and quickly. But you don't need too much gear, unless you get really, really serious down the road, and you don't need to buy a pair of really fancy lifting shoes. They're not as inexpensive as they used to be. because nothing is as inexpensive as it used to be. But don't waste a lot of money, on a fancy pair of shoes. Try to get something pretty standard. Eventually, maybe you want to upgrade to something if you want a different shoe or a different color. But a standard shoe, Adidas, makes a great shoe. I think most people can get away with that. Dewin shoes for those who have wider feet. Those are a good shoe to purchase. Other than that, Reeboks are kind of crappy. Nikes are kind of expensive. So,
Yeah, I usually recommend those Adidas Powerlift.
Yeah, Adidas Powerlift.
I've got wide feet, and those work well.
Yeah, they work well. No, they do. They can. Some people, though, have really wide feet, and the Dewins just make a huge difference. And those you can find on the Rogue website, or Penley makes Dewins, but Dowin is the name of that. So, but I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much kind of wraps it up and covers, the accessories that are really needed for you, as needed. You don't need to run out and buy everything at once. It will come as you continue to train. And definitely always just, check in with Vic. If you have a coach, talk to your coach. Just make sure that you ask him or her, for recommendations. But these are our recommendations as coaches, and what we typically see and what works the best for people. So yep. I think we can wrap it up there. Thanks for spending some time with us today here at 5x3 Radio. As always, you can reach either Rebecca or I via email. Rebecca is at
cornerstonestrengthmaryland@gmail.com.
And I am at Emily@5x3.com. We have in our in our bio and our listing, the Charm City Strong Woman contest thread. So we've got the blog post about the contest. We also have my fundraising page is up now. We're also running a t-shirt campaign. So if you'd like to purchase a Charm City Strong Woman t-shirt and help the cause, you can do that as well. And there's also a link about the Ullman House too. You can read more about the Ullman House. And if you'd like to donate directly to the Ullman House, you can do that as well. But all the money that we collect through Charm City Strong Woman is donated to Ullman. So just know it goes to Ullman directly. And yeah, just kind of keep following us and checking us out and see if we can hit that $20,000 mark, which I know we will. In our 11th year of the contest. So thanks again for joining us today. We look forward to coming back in a couple of weeks for our next podcast. And again, any questions or concerns or comments you have, feel free to get in touch with us. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.